So the other day, somebody asked me what it was like to fly with female pilots. I thought, well, that's sort of a ridiculous question in 2020. But okay, I'll answer it. I've, in my professional flying career with ASA as an airline pilot with passengers, I've probably flown with maybe a dozen. I've 32 years, so that's the first thing to note, is it just that many of them. Before that, though, in 1983, I was flight instructing to about 24 people, and only 3 of them were female. I found them to be great students, easy to work with, very studious, perfectly capable. If you see movies and stuff like that, you'll see a picture of the airplane's about to crash, and the captain will turn to the guys flying with the first officer and say, "Here, help me pull back. I gotta pull back so we don't crash. Pull back on the wheel." But it's actually not a matter of physical strength. Even in the old days, it wasn't a matter of physical strength necessarily. There may be a rare airplane that might have required some muscle, but the modern airplanes are not like that at all. The rudder is probably the most difficult. If you're in a multi-engine airplane and one of the engines quits, that might be. But nowadays they have hydraulically assisted rudder, so that's not even an issue. So anyway, as far as instructing, I found them very suited to the job. They tended to be less frustrated when things got difficult, because it's going to be difficult to learn how to fly. Not impossible. It doesn't take a genius, obviously, but it takes persistence. And 3 or 4 guys just didn't have the persistence to do it. Just couldn't keep up with it and follow through with it. And besides not keeping up with the study required. It's a constant study. You just don't learn it and then don't think about it again, because most professions are like that. In my flying career, I've said about maybe a dozen or so. 2 stand out. One of them, when I first got the job at ASA, my first passenger airline job, I didn't have enough turboprop time. I had plenty of time, but I didn't have enough for the turboprop. So they put me on as first officer, hired me on as first officer in the Banderanti EMB 110, 2-engine turboprop, PT6, basically non-pressurized. Did have some kind of a air cycle machine, but it wasn't for pressurization. So anyway, we're flying with this. We meet before the flight and we talk a little bit, and the typical questions: how, where are you from, what you do, sort of hinting around at what kind of experience is the first time you've ever been in an airplane. Of course, not at that level. Once you get hired by an airline, you're beyond the level of just stepping first time you've been in an airplane. But still, there's questions about that, and we both ask each other questions like that, but very casual, because we didn't want to sound like we're a jerk, Okay, so I've got confidence, she's got confidence in me. We take off, we're flying, we're going to, I don't know, somewhere, Mississippi, Alabama, I can't remember where. It's not. I did say it's not pressurized. So we come up to a line of rain showers, and when you're looking at them, you see these high, towering cumulus clouds. Looks like it's bumpy. We have passengers. We don't want to go through that. It might be bumpy. So that's a good first officer. I said, I come up with a suggestion. Well, how about we turn south, head south for a while? I've heard that there's breaks further south, and then we'll be able to cut through without getting into them. We're at 8,000 feet, something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. She said, yeah, that's a good idea. And she says, but how about we try this? Let's go down to a lower altitude and get below the clouds, and we'll be able to see the rain shafts, and we'll work our way through that. Okay, so I called ATC. She's flying, I'm doing the radios. I call ATC, and they say, yeah, okay, go down to 3,000 feet or 2,500 feet. Now, we knew the terrain, and plus it was above the minimum vectoring altitude, so everybody's aware of the terrain, and there was no mountains and towers. We do all that stuff. We get down there, and sure enough, we flew along for a while, and we saw a break between 2 heavier range shafts. 2 heavy range shafts. We went between the 2 of them and got to our destination on time, and it was good. And I mean, that wasn't some wonderful revelation to me, but I thought, well, this is a good way for this is a real good way for a crew to work together. There was no resentment. It wasn't like she's saying, I can't believe you dare challenge me. And on my part, I didn't say, I can't believe this woman's got some stupid idea. I can't believe she doesn't take my suggestion. You know, it was just like a matter of fact, professional way to operate. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying this is the example of what male and female pilots operate under: professional respect for one another, and so it's that was no big deal. I mean, you know, there's no. I suppose back in the 50s, maybe the 60s, there was some of that going on. Obviously, there were. As you hear stories about it back then, but the other story I had was sort of a little more amusing, I think. Same thing, we meet each other in the crew lounge, we talk a little bit, sort of get some idea about our backgrounds, whatever, and okay, fine. Get in the airplane, of course, you're just sitting there waiting to be passengers aboard and all that stuff. This was on the Brasilia too, by the way, pressurized, but that's irrelevant actually. But we talking about, she mentioned the fact that she had applied for Delta and been rejected. I said, oh, really? She says, yeah, they told me I'm too short. Okay. Hey, that's a little unusual for them to ever explain. They don't have to explain. There's just so many applicants to any major airline that they don't need to explain why. And the fact that they'd say something like that. This was back in 86, 87, so this is still a long time ago. So she says, but I've gone to a doctor and I'm being stretched. I'm not that much shorter, but I'm just getting stretched. And you know, I wanted to sort of chuckle, but I tried to keep a straight face because that just seems odd to me. But okay, so she says, okay, I've been stretched. And so like a couple months later, I heard that she went back and they still rejected her. And she had, her boyfriend or husband, I can't remember which, was suing Delta for discrimination. I just sort of thought that was the whole concept of being stretched was odd. But hey, I haven't heard anything since then. She did get another job or retired or something, because I didn't see her around and I didn't hear any more about her even working at the same company anymore. So I just thought that was funny. I don't know. Maybe it's not all that funny. Maybe it's dead serious to y'all, but there's limits to what I would do for a job. Let's put it that way.